I'm glad. I'm glad I'm alive today. I'm glad I could open my eyes, see, and breathe today. Could hear, taste, eat well today. Could stretch my limbs, move my body. Take in the softness of the clouds, the greenness of the trees, the summer breeze and blueness of the sky. I'm glad I could find some joy today, find ease, feel loved and loving. I'm beyond glad I could be present, so present to this day, to this life, to the world around me, to the whole world within me. And you. Welcome to the latest Floating Poetry broadcast, and thank you for leaning in to the 73rd show in my ongoing weekly series, coming to you live again from the coast of Long Island at the gentle near end of summer. This is your poet and poetorialist, Colin Giudicca, a voice for living our days more poetically, more expressively, more soulfully. Last week we beheld the body in its manifold beauty and mystery, physicality, subtle energies, and possibilities, seen through different cultural and historical lenses, wisdoms, and imaginations. This week I'd like you to find ease of way and experience some here through varied reflections, wise prescriptions, and easeful poetry I've curated for us with an eye to discovering new openings, inspiring us, you, to make entries into all kinds of welcome or greater ease of mind, of heart, of body, of living and loving, of creating, expressing, of giving or receiving, of accepting, or simply calmly being. Maybe we begin easing in with this. This was written by me on and for the autumnal equinox back in 2019. It's called Leave the Calendar Behind. Let the pages loose to fly off in the first autumn breeze. Instead of reading what day, month, season of the year it is, step outside, feel into the air, the changing light, the landscape before you, around you. Let them tell you where things are, like the equinox now balancing in, balanchining in as you attend. Let your body pivot naturally and your thoughts glide gently away from fleeting summer toward fanfaring fall. Witness everything cooling down, everything spooling out in clear light, in soon-to-come pageant colors, fragrant scents, abundant textures. Accept the invitation to rise with, like the evening star. Take the offered hand of nature and enter together into its widely alive and enlivening theater. Abraham Hicks has a good thought. Be easy about it. Don't rush into things. Savor them more. Make more plans and be more deliberate and specific about the plans that you are making. And in all that you do, let your dominant intent be to find that which pleasures you as you imagine it. Let your desire for pleasure, your desire for feeling good, be your only guiding light. As you seek those thoughts that feel good, you will always be in vibrational harmony with the energy that is your source. And under those conditions, only good can come to you, and only good can come from you. I would add to that ease. And I find this a wise thought and worth following. Certainly proponent as I am, as well, of slower yet fuller living, doing, being, which brought me to Rob Bresney and his approach the gradual, slow simmering approach in a bow, in part to taking life one day at a time, which I can say gives certainly me more ease of way. So his approach. I'm all about the gradual, slow simmering approach to just about everything. My aspiration is to be reverential and devotional toward the cumulative effects of small, minute-by-minute meditations in the midst of, quote, ordinary life, and the manageable day-to-day self-transformations that are hard, but not too hard. When I was young, I loved to cultivate senses-reeling ecstatic breakthrough, but now I'm more inclined to commune with the chronic, low-level ecstatic union that thrives on opening to every little experience I encounter. Neither is, quote, better, of course. I'm just talking about what has been right for me in recent years. I would love to practice Tantra 24/7, worshiping and drawing inspiration from each small gift the daily rhythm brings. Thank you, Ram Bresney. Well, I have had, as some of us have had, or many of us have had, all sorts of moments we relished, we savored, we were in that place, those small gifts of moments. Back in 1998, I beheld the most timelessly graceful landscape. This is a touchstone to that. It was in Holland, 1998. And this is called Dit Zakdaland, this gentle land. Cloth-white cows float by, reflected in the moss-cool water that streams through this soft land, where centuries pass on summer afternoons. And, on this note of a slow and also soothing, I would say, very important to soothe ourselves and to find things that soothe us often. And what could be more than a fountain that does that? At least for me, it does that. And this I wrote back in the Yucatan in Mexico one winter, many years back. Fuente de la Lluvia, fountain of rain. Rain falls from the rim of cool stone into the painted blue and yellow-tiled fountain, its glassy tiles submerged and luminous in the glow of underwater light. The freshening sound of rain falling from the rim of cool stone like pure spring drops plinking into puddles. The soothing sound of rain falling from the rim of cool stone on a languid blue night dreaming with stars. Well, we have the Buddhist contemplative Pema Chodron on gentleness, the art of letting go, how to befriend your inner life. She's worth knowing about. I have some words from her in one of her talks. If we see our so-called limitations with clarity, precision, gentleness, good-heartedness, and kindness, and having seen them fully, then let go, open further, we begin to find that our world is more vast and more refreshing and fascinating than we had realized before. In other words, the key to feeling more whole and less shut off and shut down is to be able to see clearly who we are and what we're doing. Meditation is about seeing clearly the body that we have, the mind that we have, the domestic situation we have, the job we have, and the people who are in our lives. It's about seeing how we react to all these things, seeing our emotions and thoughts just as they are right now, in this very moment, in this very room, on this very seat. It's not about trying to make them go away, not trying to become better than we are, but just seeing clearly with precision and gentleness and the ability to let go. These are not things that we have to gain, but something that we could bring out, cultivate, rediscover in ourselves. Thank you, Pema Chodron. David Wagner wrote this poem called Their Bodies. It was actually written to the students of anatomy at Indiana University. That gaunt old man came first, his hair as white as your scoured tables. Maybe you'll recollect him by the scars of steel mill burns on the backs of his hands, on the nape of his neck, on his arms and sinewy legs, and her by the enduring innocence of her face, as open to all of you in death as it would have been in life. She would memorize your names and ages and pastimes and hometowns if she could, but she can't now, so remember her. They believed in doctors, listened to their advice, and followed it faithfully. You should treat them one last time as they would have treated you. They had been kind to others all their lives and believed in being useful. Remember, somewhere their son is trying hard to believe you'll learn as much as possible from them as he did, and you will do your best to learn politely and truly. They gave away the gift of those useful bodies against his wish. They had their own ways of doing everything always. If you're not certain which ones are theirs, be gentle to everybody. Thank you, David Wagner. Just letting yourself soften. You know, Chodron talks about being gentle, so softening. Just softening your eyes, if not the rest of your body, even that is a wonderful exercise and experience, especially when you're out in nature. For me, it's most often by the ocean. So here's another different poem from the Yucatan coast. Debajo de mar en calma, under the calm sea. Underwater lies a luminous world where strands of light waver through the green glassiness, where your skin softens and glows, and all your limbs move slowly as in a dream. Below the surface, tender currents caress your body. Above, a warm breath plays on your neck and face as you sweep half-open eyes over the floating landscape. I sourced for us some quotes, some wisdoms, I would say, about ease of living and other eases. Walt Whitman, re-examine all you have been told, dismiss what insults your soul. So maybe take time or make time to do some re-examining like this and some healthy dismissing. It's very important. It's like pruning a garden, right? Taking the weeds out so the rest can thrive. I've brought up Michael Meade before, the applied mythologist and master storyteller, and he had something worthwhile on our theme, I would say. This wisdom on engaging and embracing our greater selves. This is from his book, The Genius Myth, which offers many riches, I would say, including going with our inner flow. So he said this: nature loves a mystery, and each soul born is a mystery waiting to be revealed, a meaningful story waiting to unfold. No one can prove it, nor can it be simply disproven. But all the old stories depict it, and our dreams hint at it, and life at critical times requires that we act as if it were true. The awakened individual has always been an agent of change and an assistant to creation ongoing. Human beings are both a genius production of nature and the genius producers of culture. The awakening of our genius self allows us to deliver the gifts we have been given and contribute meaning as well as beauty to the world. An old idea found in many traditions holds that each person comes to this world of change at a time when they have something meaningful to offer. And in parens, I believe that heartfully and soulfully and completely, certainly as an example in my own life, what I've been called to now. Meaningful solutions to the overwhelming problems of the world would be closer at hand if it was better understood that each person born bears within them a gift that the world might need. Thank you, Michael Meade. Well, that took me to a poem that I actually hadn't come across before, but Primo Levi, Unfinished Business. He wrote this quite back in time, decades ago. Sir, please accept my resignation as of next month, and if it seems right, plan on replacing me. I'm leaving much unfinished work, whether out of laziness or actual problems. I was supposed to tell someone something, but I no longer know what and to whom. I've forgotten. I was also supposed to donate something, a wise word, a gift, a kiss. I put it off from one day to the next. I'm sorry. I'll do it in the short time that remains. I'm afraid I've neglected important clients. I was meant to visit distant cities, islands, desert lands. You'll have to cut them from the program or entrust them to my successor. I was supposed to plant trees, and I didn't. To build myself a house, maybe not beautiful, but based on plans. Mainly, I had in mind a marvelous book, kind sir, which would have revealed many secrets, alleviated pains and fears, eased doubts, given many the gift of tears and laughter. You'll find its outline in my drawer, down below, with the unfinished business. I didn't have the time to write it out, which is a shame. It would have been a fundamental work. Thank you, Primo Levi. It was actually translated by Jonathan Galassi, Unfinished Business. He had an interesting life story, that man, Primo. Okay, so Gary Snyder, poet, speaks of the practice of the wild. He has a wonderful book of that title, which I've shared in other programs back earlier on. I can't remember which ones exactly right now, but others. And, to me, feeling and relaxing into our wildness, our natural wilderness, brings a visceral ease of being. And he's on that case. Our bodies are wild. He says that the involuntary quick turn of the head at a shout, the vertigo at looking off a precipice, the heart in the throat in a moment of danger, the catch of the breath, the quiet moments, relaxing, staring, reflecting, are universal responses of this mammal body. The body does not require the intercession of some conscious intellect to make it breathe, to keep the heart beating. It is to a great extent self-regulating. It is a life of its own. Sensation and perception do not exactly come from outside, and unremitting thought and image flow are not exactly outside. The world is our consciousness, and it surrounds us. There are more things in the mind and the imagination than, quote, you can keep track of. Thoughts, memories, images, angers, delights rise unbidden. The depths of the mind, the unconscious, are our inner wilderness areas. And that is where a bobcat is right now. I do not mean personal bobcats in personal psyches, the bobcat that roams from dream to dream. The conscious agenda planning ego occupies a very tiny territory, a little cubicle somewhere near the gate, keeping track of some of what goes in and out, and sometimes making expansionist plots. And the rest takes care of itself. The body is, so to speak, in the mind. They are both wild. Thank you, Gary Snyder. Well, that made me think, as I connect all these dots in my own curation of Mary Oliver's well-loved poem, Wild Geese. If you don't know that, I'm going to share that with you. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over announcing your place in the family of things. Thank you, Mary Oliver. Looking at the reasons and ruts of busyness, distraction, and impatience, I feel can show us the antidotes, or some of them. And so I pulled together some material on that, on those sort of flip sides. This is Jason Farman, his book, The Art of Waiting from the Ancient to the Instant World. Interesting book, very interesting. Reclaiming the pleasures of durational being in an instant culture of ceaseless doing. One of the quotes there is, waiting isn't a hurdle keeping us from intimacy and from living our lives to our fullest. Instead, it's essential to how we connect as humans through the messages we send. So in that book is this quote from him about, he talks about Beckett's play, Waiting for Godot. In its many violations of theatrical norms, strips away plot expectations to make a comment on the human condition. Godot symbolizes whatever we wait for, whatever we long for, whatever we rely on to save us from our current state of uncertainty and despair. Godot represents the promise of what might come on the other side of our waiting. It shows how time flows through us and changes us. Day after day, as we wait for the things we desire, we become different people. In the act of waiting, we become who we are. Waiting points to our desires and hopes for the future, and while that future may never arrive, and our hopes may never be fulfilled, the act of reflecting on waiting teaches us about ourselves. The meaning of life isn't deferred until that thing we hope for arrives. Instead, in the moment of waiting, meaning is located in our ability to recognize the ways that such hopes define us. Well, thank you to him for that. Mary Oliver's Wild Geese, I was thinking about the natural world, the wild world, and how much that can show and teach us patience and naturalness. And of course, the more patient we are, yes, the more easy we are. This is a poem, The Great Blue, a meditation on a great blue heron, great teacher of mine, great totem bird of mine. I love his presence, his absolute stillness, aura of solitude, sacredness, his long-legged patience in the wind-stirred pond, gracefully at one with everything, wholly attuned to every movement above and below the surface, his watchfulness, sureness, despite the drift of time and summer clouds. Into the split second he spies and elegantly spears a shining fish and flies off in his great blueness to a nearby bank of cattail grass to feast and rest. Great blue. Mark Whitman has a book called Felt Time, and I found this for us. In there, he said, people who meticulously pay attention to every entry in their calendars and are largely trapped by the future perspective. Those who are always working toward a goal forego opportunities for experience, time that is felt and lived, that is, a life rich in positive experiences, is made up of moments of fulfillment, often in the company of good friends or a beloved partner. Therefore, whether one lives out the moment or pursues gain over the long term is a matter of emotionally intelligent conduct and weighing decisions. Someone who is free and full of life does not always choose to delay gratification. Rather, she or he is smart about when to seek enjoyment and when to wait. You know, that notion of goals, I know I've been in my own life a person who lived by so many different goals at different times. And these days, for me anyway, I live by themes. So it's about the quality of my days, about the feeling state of my days, and wanting to have good feeling, creativity, joy, different inspiration, relaxation, connection, engagement of various kinds, etc., etc. So there's various things. If I can do a little bit of those, or have a little bit of those, or more than a little bit each day, that makes the mosaic of my life. But they're thematic. They're qualities of being. It's no longer about having to get here and do that and accomplish this. I figure if all of that coalesces the right way, wherever it leads will be a good place, ultimately, and a good journey. So you might think about that. Maybe experiment with living thematically instead of goal-orientedly. Alan Watts, the British philosopher, talks about happiness and how to live with presence. It's a book, The Wisdom of Insecurity, a message for an age of anxiety. And, I would say being in and with each experience, whatever that is for you, for us, opens a doorway to greater easefulness and less ambivalence. So I wanted to give you a thought from him. The crux of the human struggle, because we want to, obviously, ease of way means less struggle or no struggle, which we can get into another time about struggling. It's not in my vocabulary anymore. The real reason why human life can be so utterly exasperating and frustrating is not because there are facts called death, pain, fear, or hunger. The madness of the thing is that when such facts are present, we circle, buzz, writhe, and whirl, trying to get the, quote, I out of the experience. We pretend that we are amoebas and try to protect ourselves from life by splitting in two. Sanity, wholeness, and integration lie in the realization that we are not divided, that man and his present experience are one, and that no separate, quote, I or mind can be found. To understand music, you must listen to it, but so long as you are thinking, quote, I am listening to this music, you are not listening. Thank you, Alan Watts. So I wanted to sort of move to from that to the notion of acceptance of what is, which serves us in easing through life. And the Renaissance, the great Renaissance philosopher, the great French philosopher of that time, Michel de Montaigne, who influenced so many great thinkers and artists and others, and this is on accepting and honoring imperfection. He said this back in time. according to this fellow who was studying Bakewell, there can be no really ambitious writing without an acceptance that other people will do what they like with your work and change it almost beyond recognition. Montaigne accepted this principle in art as he did in life. He even enjoyed it. People form strange ideas of you. They adapt you in their own to their own purposes. By going with the flow and relinquishing control of the process, you gain all the benefits of the old Hellenistic trick of amor fati, the cheerful acceptance of whatever happens. In Montaigne's case, amor fati was one of the answers to the general question of how to live, and as it happened, it also opened the way to his literary immortality. What he left behind was all the better for being imperfect, ambiguous, inadequate, and vulnerable to distortion. "O Lord," one might imagine him exclaiming, "by all means let me be misunderstood." On the wavelength of philosophers, I wanted to just bring in for a moment Friedrich Nietzsche, the German philosopher, poet, composer, who his healthy ego has proven largely right over time that for a modern reason, the assurance he offers that life's greatest rewards spring from our brush with adversity. So the gift of failure, I guess we could say. But Alain de Botton of the School of Life in the UK, he distills those convictions and their legacy into this. The most fulfilling human projects appeared inseparable from a degree of torment, the sources of our greatest joys lying awkwardly close to those of our greatest pains. Why? Because no one is able to produce a great work of art without experience, nor achieve a worldly position immediately, nor be a great lover at the first attempt. And in the interval between initial failure and subsequent success, in the gap between who we wish one day to be and who we are at present, must come pain, anxiety, envy, and humiliation. We suffer because we cannot spontaneously master the ingredients of fulfillment. He was striving to correct the belief that fulfillment must come easily or not at all, a belief ruinous in its effects, for it leads us to withdraw prematurely from challenges that might have been overcome if only we had been prepared for the savagery legitimately demanded by almost everything valuable. And then I thought we would have Seneca on the tranquility of mind, the Stoic philosopher. Who said this: "Nothing is so bitter that a calm mind cannot find comfort in it." Apply reason to difficulties, harsh circumstances can be softened, narrow limits can be widened, and burdensome things can be made to press less severely on those who bear them cleverly. Thank you, Seneca. In these wildly trying times we're all in, making inner and outer peace with each other, with ourselves, making a truce of a kind is, to me, crucial for our health and well-being. Setting aside all these other polarities we're caught up in. So here's a poem that might help us toward that. I'd like to share that this was an anthem poem I made for the Truce Foundation of the United States, where I've been poet laureate since 2017. The Times of Truce. When the blowing winds cease, when the swelling seas settle down, when the earth enters a still point near dawn, near dusk, or the night skies grow silent with stars, whenever the world of nature makes peace with itself, and man mirrors that peace in himself, gives free leave to his fellow man, these are the times when rare and graceful plumes of truce, deep spirits of unity, community can be found and greatly felt by everything living, be remembered and honored by everyone, young to old, hearkening. The Times of Truce. You will also, if you go to thepoetorialist.com website, there it's there, both written form, spoken form, and musically scored form. I'm often moved, as you know, by the philosopher-poet, the Irishman John O'Donohue, no longer, unfortunately, with us. I think he'd still have so much more wisdom to give us, but he certainly gave us a lot in his short lifetime, dying in his sleep in his 50s. Well, here he is on, let's call it wildness, because I spoke earlier about wilderness and Gary Snyder. One of the sad things today is that so many people are frightened by the wonder of their own presence. They are dying to tie themselves into a system, a role, or to an image, or to a predetermined identity that other people have actually settled on for them. This identity may be totally at variance with the wild energies that are rising inside their souls. Many of us get very afraid and we eventually compromise. We settle for something that is safe rather than engaging the danger and the wildness that is in our own hearts. Yes. John O'Donohue. Yes, John O'Donohue. Esther Perel. On eroticism in hard times. And just stay with me on this for a moment, because I know we sort of go off on a different beam, most of us, on the erotic and our erotic natures. But here's what she has to say. From the pandemic to climate crisis to crimes against humanity, severe burnout, and more, we are living through collective trauma. Our impulse may be to shut down, numb ourselves with substances, disconnect, sleep forever, wallow in the 24-hour news cycle, or stuff every free moment with social media to avoid difficult thoughts and feelings. But today I invite you to try something different. I want you to embrace your erotic self. You may think that talking about eroticism at a time like this is hubris, but I think it's essential. I speak of it often. Not through the narrow definition of sex that modernity has assigned to it, but in the mystical sense. Eroticism reveals to us another world inside this world, Octavio Paz wrote. The senses become servants to our imagination, letting us see the invisible and hear the inaudible. It is an elixir of vibrancy, curiosity, and spontaneity that makes us feel alive. It is the counterforce of deadness, a radiance that reminds us that despite any darkness we may endure, we are here on this planet right now, and at all times we are on the edge of all that is possible, straddling hope and anxiety. Eroticism isn't just the life force that makes sex great, it's what makes life itself worth living. When times are good, it's what converts the mundane into magic. When they're tough, it's what inspires us to survive and even to thrive despite all odds. It's why we make art and music and go into nature when we are in pain. It is the orchestras in the concentration camps, the choirs in the cotton fields, the dark humor shared by refugees all around the globe. It's the blues. It's both the letters of longing and the poetry of heartbreak. It's the playlist we make for a friend working graveyard shifts at the hospital. It's every pandemic baby conceived at the height of prolonged uncertainty, isolation, and grief. It's the spirit that creates new life when death is ever present. It's having faith that the world will exist for our grandchildren and finding real ways to contribute to that outcome, even as apocalyptic scenarios seem to play out around us. Thank you, Esther Perel. Yeah, let's expand our notion of that, because I think it would help us all. So, when we simplify our daily lives, they become less burdened, less stressful, more enjoyable. Just even taking a shower. Here's a poem from London 2013 of mine, Morning Shower. As cool rain falls from gray clouds onto the green garden outside a half-open window, warm rain falls from the sunflower mouth of the morning shower onto a grateful head, face, and shoulders, onto glistening hands that hold a French blue block of soap, rills down thighs, lithe legs to summer brown feet, then water spouts away into the hidden channels of the old house. Morning shower. Well, dear listeners, there's also much to be said about graceful idling. Counter-puritanical, of course, which to me is a very good thing. They had some good ethics, but they were sometimes a bit over the top. Well, here's a praise poem about it by Paul Violi. In praise of idleness. For the second time this week, I've watched snow fall at sunrise, dawn arrive on a breeze, the way I think it always does. I don't know which time or the weather woke me, charmed me out of a dream where a few of us floated around, gravity's jokers, face up in the quiet water and the jetsam of a slow life. I had one line that I'd saved and let it go as though it were mine, calling for, quote, darker days and brighter gods. Then I only had my waking instant, but it opened with that same shadowless light, a sense of change, of something both near and remote, first and last, blowing with the wind and snow through my reflection in the window, and then I lost it, So here I am, with cigarettes and cold coffee, an unfinished ode to idleness, cobwebs in high places, a spider that repels down the bookshelves, and a commotion recollected in tranquillity, sunlight pouring through, and another bright page with a peculiar darkness flowing over it, shadows of heat waves from the radiator, or my thoughts going up in smoke. The glass, when misted over, reminds me of store windows, how they're swathed with soap, shrouded in secrecy before a grand opening or after an ignominious closing. Either way, not very interesting, except perhaps when the graffiti, the anonymous messages appear, scrawled across them by some child of the air, words you can see through, or a clear smear. And at twilight I'm still here, the same place, the same light. Nothing to do but move with the view. Snow, wind over soft ruins, unfinished buildings that loom like monuments to a spent curiosity. I'm in the tallest, up here with the nopes roosting on soggy flunk girders. Want a cigarette? Nope. Got a match? Nope. See any alternative to solipsism? Nope. Hedonism? Nope. Sloppy stoicism? Nope. Did you know that Maryland has no natural but only man-made lakes? Nope. The creatures of idleness are pure speculation. They follow the weather, shadow the wind, fill in the blanks. Some are big and clumsy and sly and like to lick my watch. Others, like gerunds, have already drunk themselves into a state of being. Another, with time on his hands and the sense of how windows are both inside and outside a place, stands there watching his silhouette change to a reflection as the light shifts and he moves forward or back, plays like a god stepping in and out of himself, and hears the wind as the breath of change when the last flurry whirls away in the light. The last flake grows larger as it descends and presents, when it lands in a burst of brilliance, the floor plan for a new building where every wet beaded window is a picture of pleasure and expectation. The drops ripen, moments in the light, questions that, answered by a feeling, slide away as clear as my being. A drop at a time down the glass. When the wind blows this hard, it's about to say something at last. The earth down to its bare magic, wind and glass, water and light. Thank you, Paul Violi. Well, I've learned over time, as we can, how to idle gracefully, and have in many places, many countries, like Holland, in this case Amsterdam, 1 June 2001. This is called an air of idleness. Bicycles float like tin boats along the grachts and garden paths. A sense of gentleness, an air of idleness fills the molecules morning and afternoon, fills the coffee cups and conversations, fills your socks and shoes as you stroll, soothes all restless minds, all roving souls. Remember that stories, like words, are powerful, and we should tell and use them prudently, I would say, carefully, but also to empower ourselves because they are so powerful, and to shift us into welcome states of being and feeling wherever we can. And I wanted to come back to a different Abraham Hicks quote about this, one I follow faithfully from certainly my life. There is no right or wrong way to tell your improved story. It can be about your past, present, or future experiences. The only criterion that is important is that you be conscious of your intent to tell a better feeling, improved version of your story. Telling many good-feeling short stories throughout your day will change your point of attraction. Just remember that the story you tell is the basis of your life. So tell it the way you want it to be. Well, listeners, try it. See what changes for you. I think you're going to be wonderfully surprised, quite delighted. On this same note, from the dailystoic.com, speaking of the great ancients a little bit more, is Marcus Aurelius, they say here, do you think he believed he was living in the hopeless decline and fall of Rome, that he was the last of the 5 good emperors? Or do you think he believed in the possibility of a better future, that he was part of a long chain of goodness, that he could not disappoint? The story we tell ourselves about who we are is important. It determines what we're capable of being. It determines who we are. Thomas Jefferson was complicit in the pervasive sin of slavery. Did he write himself off as an evil, irredeemable hypocrite? Or Did he believe that he could, even if he couldn't quite save himself, chart a better path for the future that might one day help his new nation escape the stain of chattel slavery? So the story we tell ourselves is important because it can change the world. The same goes for you. Are you a person who fails at everything they do, or someone who has failed towards success? A flawed sinner without value, or a good person trying to rise above their urges and circumstances? Do you believe your country's history is one evil deed after another, or has it been a valiant effort to march with progress and grow from the mistakes of the past? Stories matter individually, collectively, historically. So what story are you telling? Telling your kids? Telling your employees? Your colleagues? Your friends? Is it the one that has hope of getting better, or one that destroys agency and a belief in a better tomorrow? Thank you, Daily Stoic. Claiming regaining our sense of innocence. I want to bring innocence up. We talked about it, lots of other aspects of ease of way or things that can take us there. And I found innocence brings a deep inner ease and also a freshness to seeing the world each day anew. Lucille Clifton has this, blessing the boats. May the tide that is entering even now the lip of our understanding carry you out beyond the face of fear. May you kiss the wind, then turn from it, certain that it will love your back. May you open your eyes to water, water waving forever, and may you and your innocence sail through this to that. Linda Hogan, Innocence. There is nothing more innocent than the still unformed creature I find beneath soil, neither of us knowing what it will become in the abundance of the planet. It makes a living only by remaining still in its niche. One day it may struggle out of its tender pearl of blind skin with a wing, or with vision leaving behind the transparent. I cover it again, keep laboring, hands in earth, myself a singular body, watching things grow, wondering how a cut blade of grass knows how to turn sharp again at the end. This same growing must be myself, not aware yet of what I will become in my own fullness inside this simple flesh. Okay, we have other good things to get through, so let me, I'm going to edit a little bit more as we go along, but may we each find ease on our paths through our life passages, great and small, and stay open to where our spirits want us to travel. Because when we're tuned into our intuitions, they direct us accordingly. The opportunity to change direction is always there to choose, no matter where we are, what time of day or night, season, part of life. This is written on the Crack Trail. It was called the Crack, Killarney, Northern Ontario, back in August 2012. It's called The Path Opens. The path of the day opens. The path of your present, your future, how it turns and opens here, widely, brightly, maybe foreverly. Walt Whitman. After you have exhausted what there is in business, politics, conviviality, love, and so on, have found that none of these finally satisfy or permanently wear, what remains? Nature remains, to bring out from their torpid recesses the affinities of a man or woman with the open air, the trees, fields, the changes of seasons, the sun by day and the stars of heaven by night. Here's Eduardo Galeano. Imagine yourself here and how it would feel to be here at the fiesta. The sun was gentle, the air clear and the sky cloudless. Buried in the sand, the clay pot steamed. As they went from ocean to mouth, the shrimp passed through the hands of Fernando, master of ceremonies, who bathed them in a holy water of salt onions and garlic. There was good wine. Seated in a circle, we friends shared the wine and shrimp in the ocean that spread out free and luminous at our feet. As it took place, that happiness was already being remembered by our memory. It would never end, nor would we, for we are all mortal until the first kiss and the second glass, which is something everyone knows, no matter how small his or her knowledge. I want to point ourselves to Underland, Robert McFarlane's book, because it's an enchanting journey into the hidden universe beneath our feet. And I just give you the last one thought because there's more to it. But he talks about when viewed in deep time, things come alive that seemed inert. New responsibilities declare themselves. A conviviality of being leaps to mind and eye. The world becomes eerily various and vibrant again. Ice breathes, rock has tides, mountains ebb and flow, stone pulses. We live on a restless earth. I would say beautifully restless. And there's some other pieces on nature, but I'm going to share Henry Beston's, the nature writer, his 1948 manifesto for reclaiming our humanity by breaking the tyranny of technology and relearning to be nurtured by nature. Oh, work that is done in freedom out of doors, work that is done with the body's and soul's goodwill, work that is an integral part of life and is done with friends. Is there anything so good? I would agree with him on that. And I think of so many different, certainly animals and aspects of nature, like butterflies. I think seem to do so much with such great ease, grace. Clouds. Let's muse more often on those things, on nature's beauty, its purity, its simplicity. This is a poem I wrote for a dear friend, Angus Bruce, for him and his garden out in Sag Harbor, New York, on Long Island. Clouds. Pale pink clouds of mountain laurel float through the idle afternoon. Above the Hockney blue pool, fingers of French lavender, a nonchalant nude, a circus of hibiscus, between tall sways of scrub oak filled with wind, soft cones of arbor vitae, cream cups of dogwood, the rest descending delicately down and disappearing into the green dark woods. There are many ways in to ease of way, and Linda Hogan gives us this one, the way in. Sometimes the way to milk and honey is through the body. Sometimes the way is in a song. But there are three ways in the world: dangerous, wounding, and beauty. To enter stone, be water. To rise through hard earth, be plant, desiring sunlight, believing in water. To enter fire, be dry. To enter life, be food. The more ephemeral we realize it all is and will be, maybe the more preciously you'll take it in. We'll take it in, we'll hold it, we'll savor it. Beauty continues. While countries, armies, and ideologies battle, bees make honey, butterflies float and drink the nectar from gently open flowers. While spouses, neighbors, bosses, and workers quarrel, the sun still sets and rises, brings color, splendor. To snow-hatted mountains, old-growth forests, bird-filled meadows, the moon still shines upon the faces of oceans and lakes, fjords, and flowing rivers, on fish-filled bays, clear streams and tarns, tide pools of mussels, anemones, sea stars. While attentions, actions turn to ungraced choices and places of being, unlovely behaving, in the world's towns and villages, houses and metropolises, beauty everywhere, ever here, ever pure, continues. Okay, I'm sort of editing a bit on the fly to keep us in what I would say good time. This is a lovely poem I just came across the other day by Liesl Müller. I've read some of her work, but I didn't know this one. It's Monet Refuses the Operation. It's about him refusing an operation on his eyes to change them, to make them to see, quote, better. And by the way, he was someone who said, I would like to paint the way a bird sings. How about that? So here's her poem. Doctor, you say there are no halos around the streetlights in Paris, and what I see is an aberration caused by old age and affliction. I tell you it has taken me all my life to arrive at the vision of gas lamps as angels, to soften and blur and finally banish the edges you regret I don't see, to learn that the line I called the horizon does not exist, and sky and water, so long apart, are the same state of being. 54 years before I could see Rouen Cathedral is built of parallel shafts of sun, and now you want to restore my youthful errors? Fixed notions of top and bottom, the illusion of three-dimensional space, wisteria separate from the bridge it covers? What can I say to convince you the Houses of Parliament dissolves night after night to become the fluid dream of the Thames? I will not return to a universe of objects that don't know each other, as if islands were not the lost children of one great continent. The world is flux, and light becomes what it touches, becomes water, lilies on water, above and below water, becomes lilac and mauve and yellow and white and cerulean lamps, small fists passing sunlight so quickly to one another that it would take long streaming hair inside my brush to catch it. To paint the speed of light, our weighted shapes, these verticals, burn to mix with air and change our bone skin clothes to gases. Doctor, if only you could see how heaven pulls earth into its arms and how infinitely the heart expands to claim this world, blue vapor without end. Thank you, Liesl Muller. I wanted to strike a note on creativity because I love what this leads to or alludes to, relates to is Annie Dillard's insight. One of the few things I know about writing is this: spend it all, shoot it, play it, lose it all, right away, every time. Do not hoard what seems good for a later place in the book or for another book. Give it all, give it now. The impulse to save something good for a better place later is the signal to spend it now. Something more will arise for later, something better. These things fill from behind, from beneath, like well water. Similarly, the impulse to keep to yourself what you have learned is not only shameful, it's destructive. Anything you don't give freely and abundantly becomes lost to you. You open your safe and find ashes. Isn't that beautiful? And I'm thinking of that idea of being all in my friendships and my passions, like poetry. I'm an all-in man, all-in being. No part way. And it's like Seth Godin, ship your best work. Just get things out there. We don't have to be recompensed for everything in the usual ways. Give your best. And, I think about that in terms of relationships too, and where we're not fully committed to something or someone. There's a lot of pitfalls in that not full inness. And so we can make even a vow to be all in. Like this poem of mine, perhaps. So long to everything unholy, WHOLLY. To fractional relationships, where the one you even greatly love is rarely or not really all there. To factional relationships, where the one you're in life with rigidly or frigidly splinters off. To frictional relationships, where whatever greater goodness was found chafes and frays away. To fictional relationships, where all that makes the story stop or go on is make-believe. Farewell to everything and everyone unwilling or undesiring to become whole. So all these different forms, we're talking about ease of body, ease of mind, ease of growing, ease of learning, all these different forms of ease that we can come to find, discover, enter. Ease of heart certainly is one very important one, and how we all treasure that, how we all, I would say, universally wish for that. Here's a poem toward that. The heart is a remarkable thing. It can become sick over many things, over loss of faith or fortune, death of a loved one, dreams deferred, disappointments or disbeliefs, seeing suffering, then somehow, often miraculously heal, learn to reopen, sing, feel joy again. Yeah, so, ease of heart. Okay, well, in the interest of time, I'm going to save some other things for later for us, for another program, if they fit. So I was a little ambitious this time. But there was something about Colette talking about autumn and the parallel with aging and how we can age beautifully and gracefully, and I certainly believe that, no matter whatever age we are, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and beyond. This was written for my uncle Justin Cassidy on his 74th birthday, apropos, smooth sailing. The centerboard is down, the sun is warm, the wind is at your back. What more should a man ask for as he sails through his 70s than a fair breeze, blue skies, and smooth waters, the love of a good woman, and a wide wake of family, friends, and fond memories, as he points out starboard home with a light hand on the tiller toward other, more distant shores, with a still great stretch of time in between for tacking through thoughts and feelings about one's self in the world, time for floating freely and finding tranquility. Okay. Let me come to another rain poem. A soft afternoon rain is to gentle us along. Falls on the skyward face of the pond, on the immaculate feathers of the swan floating solo, larghissimo, refreshes the grasses and willows, even more greenly glowing, openly weeping, fills the petite pitchers of wildflowers, bright orange between long dry straws of reeds, moistens the petals of purple loosestrife, ragweed, queenly lace, releases the bouquet of mosses, barks, and loam, brings coolness to the heat, freshness to the heart of the day, and a meditative water music to the midsummer stillness. Breathe, my friends. Breathe. Remember to breathe always, and that eases the self any and every moment. Breathe and bathe in your experiences, especially the calming ones. Here's one as we're still in summer, on this summer night, on this freewheeling, free-feeling night. Let the fireflies be your fireworks, and the cascading stars of Perseus, Andromeda, Cassiopeia be your dreamworks. Let your spirit float like a cork on the waters of the passing hours, your passing fancies, and all your thoughts come to rest, come to ease and gentle nest on this lulling night, on this green-leafing summer evening. This was a poem that I gave as a cultural contributor to the 2017 America's Cup yacht races in Bermuda. It's called Billowing. Billowing. Clouds, of course. Constables. Van Goghs. And tempest-tossed waves. Buildings in flames high over Dalmatians' heads. Wild West Coast crossing steam engines sending up the white man's smoke signals. Curtains on a breeze-swept terrace. The white sails of a schooner singing downwind. The imagination billowing. And having a space, or being able to call something your own, a sacrosanct space, temporarily or permanently of your own, where you can commune with yourself in quietude and with the ether. Virginia Woolf was a great proponent of that. This is from a room of one's own, you may know it. There between the curtains was the October night, calm and lovely, with a star or two caught in the yellowing trees. Virginia Woolf. So yes, we talked about all these other qualities that bring ease and solitude, like that, and stillness and quietude. Pico Iyer on stillness, not many years ago, was access to information and movement that seemed our greatest luxury. Nowadays, it's often freedom from information, the chance to sit still that feels like the ultimate prize. Stillness is not just an indulgence for those with enough resources. It's a necessity for anyone who wishes to gather less visible resources. Going nowhere, as Leonard Cohen showed him, is not about austerity so much as about coming closer to one's senses. Going nowhere isn't about turning your back to the world. It's about stepping away now and then so that you can see the world more clearly and love it more deeply. And toward that, Rebecca Solnit, as we're coming in sort of to our last stretch now, on her field guide to getting lost. Leave the door open for the unknown, the door into the dark. That's where the most important things come from, where you yourself came from and where you will go. Certainly for artists of all stripes, the unknown, the idea or the form or the tale that has not yet arrived, is what must be found. It's the job of artists to open doors and invite in prophecies, the unknown, the unfamiliar. It's where their work comes from, although its arrival signals the beginning of the long disciplined process of making it their own. Scientists, too, as Oppenheimer once remarked, live always at the edge of mystery, the boundary of the unknown. But they transform the unknown into the known, haul it in like fishermen. Artists get you out into that dark sea. So I encourage you all, take the path of ease, because you can. a greater ease anyway. Maybe completely. Take the light path, that's one of them. The light of footpath, the light of heart and mind path, a bright, inviting, life-dappled, love-leaf path, a soul-whole soul path, sunlighted by day, moon-lantern by night, open to you, ready for you, calling you there. It's a beautiful, ease-centered path, I know. And speaking of centering, take all the opportunities to center yourself. I encourage you, stay centered. When necessary, be the eye of any storm, not the storm. Serenely centered, you're floating straight up above a field or an ocean, a forest or mountain. Your limbs are loose, your gaze is soft, a warm breeze plays on your skin. Centered over your head is a great sun, below your soul's a great moon. The three of you floating together, balanced weightlessly, cradled gently in space, in the open sky. Your three bodies, a trinity of light and lightness, serenely centered with the earth, the fertile earth, your home, your breathing and birthing place, being and becoming place that turns itself now slowly, now surely again to flower at your feet. Alan Lightman, the MIT professor and poet, speaks about our yearning for immortality and why we long for permanence in a universe of constant change. If against our wishes and hopes we're struck with mortality, does it grant a beauty and grandeur all its own? Even though we struggle and howl against the brief flash of our lives, might we find something majestic in that brevity? Could there be a preciousness and value to existence stemming from the very fact of its temporary duration? And I think of the night-blowing cereus, a plant that looks like a leathery weed most of the year, but for one night each summer its flower opens to reveal silky white petals which encircle yellow lace-like threads, and another whole flower like a tiny sea anemone within the outer flower. By morning, the flower has shriveled, one night of the year, as delicate and fleeting as a life in the universe. And as we wind out here, the last few things, so John O'Donohue once more, we live between the act of awakening and the act of surrender. Each morning we awaken to the light and the invitation to a new day in the world of time. Each night we surrender to the dark to be taken to play in the world of dreams where time is no more. At birth we were awakened and emerged to become visible in the world. At death we will surrender again to the dark to become invisible. Awakening and surrender, they frame each day and each life. Between them, the journey where anything can happen. The beauty and the frailty. The human soul is hungry for beauty. When we experience the beautiful, there's a sense of homecoming. Some of our most wonderful memories are beautiful places where we felt immediately at home. We feel most alive in the presence of the beautiful, for it meets the needs of our soul. For a while, the strains of struggle and endurance are relieved, and our frailty is illuminated by a different light, in which we come to glimpse behind the shudder of appearances and sure form of things. In the experience of beauty, we awaken and surrender in the same act. Beauty brings a sense of completion and sureness. Without any of the usual calculation, we can slip into the beautiful with the same ease as we slip into the seamless embrace of water. Something ancient within us already trusts that this embrace will hold us. Let us end on a grace note of ease. And thank you, John O'Donohue, for that. Ease of way, of self, of life, of every waking, widely awakening day. Thank you again for leaning in, floating and feeling in here from many places on the map, including a grateful nod to those listening often. Since the purpose of my poetosphere, in part through these programs, is all about nourishing spirits, uplifting hearts, spurring greater self-awareness, and sparking greater aliveness. And from what I hear, you tell me I'm succeeding, and I'm glad to hear so. If you value this or an earlier program and want to make a donation, I'd welcome your gift of any size by PayPal or Venmo or directly through my site or by mail to me at P.O. Box 1032, Westerly, Rhode Island 02891. And any patrons interested in hosting me on part of their own or another property as a working poet in residence for several weeks or more to bring forth a quiver of poetic art and dedicate it to them, to you, let's have a conversation. I also welcome, as you know, fellow artists to collaborate with on projects musical to theatrical, and producers, directors, or others seeking a poetic voice as a presenter or narrator. Meanwhile, you can hear all my broadcasts online as replays. I hope you'll lean in again next week or soon again. Until then, dear listeners, here's to finding ease of way of all kinds in your outer and inner lives, in your passing days, around your choices, sensings, and learnings, and each of your beings and becomings, body to mind to heart. Remember as you go to be gentle with yourselves and to breathe. It makes a world of difference. Goodbye for now, and good spirits.